Well, welcome to Walking in Spirit and Truth. I am one of your hosts for this evening, Sandy Craig, and we are so glad that you've joined us. Well, we have been studying Psalm 23, and we have gone through verses 1 through 4, and we are going to start on verse 5 tonight. And it will take us more than a couple weeks to get through it, but that's okay because what we've discovered in the process is some depth and maybe even some understanding that we might not have had before. Maybe we're looking at this psalm from a different direction now, and that's okay, because that's why we're studying the Hebrew out. That's why we are looking at the perspective of an actual shepherd. That's why we're combining these things together, because it's giving us this new picture, or a better picture. Maybe that's the word, a better picture of what David was trying to say in the midst of this psalm. So as we get started, I want to go ahead and read that. So if you'll turn to Psalm 23, we will read up to verse 5 together. So it says, Jehovah is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Now we're going to stop right there because that's what we're going to focus on. He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Okay, this whole time we've been talking about sheep and shepherds. And one of the questions you may ask is, what does a table have to do with sheep? Actually, there's a reason it's the word table, but unless you study out some depth, unless you look at the perspective of a shepherd, you're never going to get it. Yeah, this one, hold on, because now you may understand a little bit more as we go through this. Because with the perspective of a shepherd, an actual shepherd, they understand what a table means. Now, yes, we are going to go and break down the Hebrew and do things like that. But before we get started, I want to look at a shepherd's look at Psalm 23 by Philip Keller. And we're going to look at what he says from the perspective of an actual shepherd. So he says that when you think about the statement, you've got to keep in mind that it's the time, there's a time of year that the sheep go to the high country. There's a time of year where they go to the best grazing lands, and that often is in the high mountain country in the summer ranges. And these are known as uplands or tablelands. And these lands are actually sought out by sheepmen because the grazing is so good there. The land is good. In some of the finest sheep country in the world, and that is in particular is in the United States. In particular, it's in Southern Europe. There are these plateaus of sheep ranges that are always referred to as mesas. And that is the Spanish word for table. And guess what? It's not only in the US and Europe. We have Africa and other places too. In fact, we spoke of these treks when we walked through the shadow of darkness, that the sheep were being taken to the higher land. And that actual valley that was there was the treacherous place that sometimes only a single line of sheep could get through. And then we showed you pictures of that in previous broadcasts. So this plays along with that as well. There's this high country that the sheep are driven to in the summer for the summer ranges. And these mesas are called tablelands. Well, that's pretty interesting because it puts us right back answering the question, what does a sheep and a shepherd have to do with tables? Does a sheep sit down at a table? Well, of course not. But we do, right? So let's take that information and think about David. David was referring to a table that was actually an entire high summer range. These mesas had this tendency to be remote, to be harsh, hard to reach, actually, not harsh, but hard to reach. And the aggressive sheep owner would always seek them out. They would take the time, they would take the trouble and ready that land for the arrival of the flocks. They didn't just lead them out there without preparation. They didn't just lead them out there happenstance. There was preparation involved on the table, on the mesa, before the sheep ever arrived, so that the sheep could graze. They could graze safely, and the shepherd would be profitable like that in the future then as well. But he wanted to make sure the sheep were safe and had the best. Now, here's another thing we need to think about. A shepherd who didn't care wouldn't take them to the land. They wouldn't take them to the high table. They wouldn't take them to those tablelands. Or if they did, they wouldn't prepare. A good shepherd prepares. Yes. Isn't that what we are looking at in this verse? He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Carlos actually said there's a theory that plateaus were giant trees cut straight across by giants, by the falling angels. So that's very interesting. I'm going to have to seek that out or search that out a little bit. That's pretty fascinating. So nonetheless, here we have these tablelands now, these mesas, and the shepherd takes his flock there, guides his flock there during the summer. Now, it's always early in the season, before the snows have melted completely. The shepherd will make a trek, and he will go ahead and survey that land. He's going to check it out. He's going to make this preliminary look on this route, in this country, this wild country, this remote country, the place that's hard to get to. Isn't that, though, how it is? So the hardest things, the best things, are sometimes hard to get to. They're sometimes take a journey, if nothing else. To enjoy the blessing, we often have to go through the wilderness. To have that promotion, just as Yeshua, there was trials and testing, but then the good land, the promotion came. The change of garment comes in the Hebrew after those testings and those trials. So here we are. The shepherd makes an early trek to the land, and he checks it out. He looks at it. How has it changed since the last season? How has it stay the same? Are there any places that need taken care of? So he looks at it with great care, and knowing that his flock will be arriving soon in the coming season. Then, just before the sheep arrive, he's going to make another trip to that land, and he's actually going to prepare it, because yes, it does take preparation. He takes along salt, he takes along minerals, and he literally distributes them over the range at strategic spots for the benefit of the sheep, because the sheep need those minerals. The sheep need that salt. So now, picture David walking through the shadow of death, walking through that valley, that small valley that sometimes only a single row of sheep can pass, that's sometimes full of danger, as we've talked about. But he gets to that place where those green pastures are, or as the shepherds even do today. But we're talking specifically about David. And he is watching. He knows what to watch for. He's a good shepherd. So what does he look for? He looks for any sign of poisonous weeds. And he's going to pluck them out. He's going to get rid of them before one sheep arrives. And he wants his flock to be safe. So whatever it takes, however much it is, whatever's grown that shouldn't be there, he removes it. That's what an attentive shepherd does. That's what a shepherd who cares does. And then he takes survey. He looks out for any predators that might be around. He's going to look for signs. Well, what are signs? Well, I'm sure there's scat. I'm sure there are footprints. There's all sorts of things. So what kind of predators? Wolves, cougars, bears. Well, we know he's chased off lions too, right? Lions, tigers, and bears. Well, no tigers. Haha. So anyway, ignore that. But if he doesn't take notice for a sign of an enemy, then he won't be prepared because number one, he won't know what enemy is out there. He'll be able to identify the enemy by the signs that he's seen. He'll be able to identify the predator by the things that are around him. But he's going to make sure that his sheep will not be attacked. He's going to make sure that his sheep will not be trapped. He's going to make sure that his flock can rest in shalom, in that well-being, which we've spoken of, which is nothing missing, nothing broken, fullness, wholeness, and completeness. Yeah, he's going to make sure it is taken care of. Oftentimes, though, what actually happens is the enemy, the cougars, the lions, the wolves, the bears, they are actually somewhere, maybe on a rim above, looking at every movement, planning on the best time to attack the sheep. The enemies are present. The shepherd knows they're there, but he's taken care and has made a plan to make sure that those sheep can graze and rest in shalom. So even though the enemy may have his eye on those sheep, planning and plotting the best time to attack, he's ready. See, those enemies of the sheep, they're hoping for this chance for a sneaky, swift attack, maybe even to stampede the sheep so that they can separate one sheep from the other or many from the other. I don't know. Then one or other of the flock is going to fall prey easily. But that's not going to happen on a good shepherd's watch. No, no. He's prepared that ground. He's worked. He has toiled to make sure the ground is ready. That land, that table land is ready for those sheep, that it's safe and secure. And he's a ready shepherd with that rod in his hand to put away any predator that might come near. He has a staff to guide and gently move those sheep on the right track. Protection? Yes. Guidance? Yes. The rod and the staff, which we've talked about. So only at the alertness of the shepherd, of the sheepman who tends the flock on the tableland in full view of possible enemies can prevent them from attacking the sheep. Well, let me ask this question. Does Messiah, does Yeshua, does Yahweh know where the enemy is? Yes. Does he know that the enemy tries to attack his sheep? Absolutely. Is he going to allow that to happen when we're following on his path, the path of righteousness, when we're not straying off into the darkness, when our eyes are focused on him, when our goal is rest and not our own pride and our own lifting of ourselves up, when our goal has come from him, which is Yeshua, who is our rest, he is going to watch out. He's going to be alert. But it's only in the preparation for the possible eventuality of attack that the sheep can be saved from any slaughter. Well, guess what? Yeshua won on the stake, on the cross. He's already won the war. We enforce the battle with that word. But we also have to walk in faith. We have to walk trusting him, not trusting in man, not trusting in chariots, not trusting in horses. No, those will fail each and every time. Each and every time they're going to fail us. But the alert, the attentive, the good shepherd, the good sheepman has taken care of it all. He has prepared the table so that the sheep can eat, can graze, can eat the best land, even though the enemy is around, salivating over the sheep, hoping to attack. It won't happen. Here is another chore that the sheepman must do on the tableland. I'm going to sort of detail some of these things because this shows that it wasn't just a simple step for the shepherd to go forth and take and survey the land. It was much more than that. Here are some of the things that a good shepherd does before he takes his sheep to that land. First, he clears out the water holes. He clears out the springs and the drinking places for stock from leaves or whatever else kind of debris has gotten in those holes. He has to clean out all that accumulation of twigs, of stones, even maybe of soil that have fallen into their water source because the sheep need that living water, that running water. He may need to repair even the dams that he's had to hold some of that water so that it pools. And he will open the springs that may have become overgrown with grass, with brush, with weeds. All of this work, including getting rid of the weeds and the poison, the poisonous weeds specifically, all of this is preparing the tableland, preparing the table for his sheep in that summer range, because he's going to do it. Does our Yah do any less than that for us? No. Yeshua paid the way. That's what's so amazing. If you think about all that he did on his journey to the cross or to the stake, he became a curse so that we could walk in blessing. He took shame on so that we don't have to be. He took the stripes so that we can walk in healing. He freed us from oppression. He gave us, as the ultimate sacrifice, a way back, a way that we don't have to live with the punishment that we deserve for sin, for sin we've done on purpose, for anything else, accidental, all of it. He was the Lamb who fulfilled each and every sacrifice. He prepared the table, and he still does. He still does. He gave us this word, which is Yeshua, the word made flesh, that brings forth life, that brings it forth more abundantly. He gave it to us in this day, in this hour. We get to read it. Man, Bibles and scripture is available. The internet has scripture and other books available too that we can learn from. But specifically, his word is powerful. The declaration of his word matters. He has prepared the way. He's prepared the table, but it doesn't stop there. There's more. There's absolutely more. So let's continue down. That sort of takes care of that shepherd's look at Psalm 23, verse 5. But let's continue to look at it from some other angles. And if you are going to prepare dinner and you know you're going to have some really important people to come over, well, guess what? If you're preparing a meal for your friends or whomever, those are important people. So, take that for what it's worth. Doesn't have to be some fancy person. We still try to prepare the table, but we have guests coming. So picture that. So what are you going to do? I know at my place, I do enjoy cooking for other people. I don't get to do it near as often as I would like because food's expensive. But when I do it and when others would do it, I make sure, of course, everything is cleaned up and ready to go. The menu has been planned according to whom I'm bringing over, and the groceries are purchased. The preparation of anything has begun way before the evening meal would start. I make sure that the tablecloths are set, that the dishes are set, that even the decor, everything is ready so that when people walk into my home and they sit at my table, that they will feel blessed, that they will feel like they're in this special place, that they will feel like they are honored guests, that they are honored guests. So maybe you've got your napkins in place, the best silverware, your best dishes, your silver's polished, and then the food is prepared. And I personally don't normally, well, I've never invited people over and ordered something. I've always taken the time to make it with my own hands. And sometimes that requires work that started food preparation that even starts a day or two before. But everything that a person does when they're preparing for their guests is designed to make them feel blessed. Some would say maybe elegant, or it's to be appealing to those that come sit at that table. So the question has to be asked, how long does it take for Yah to prepare a table for us? The tableland. Does he hurry through it? Just throw some things together? Snatched between engagements, battle engagements, and then we eat it and swallow for haste so we can go out and continue on? No, absolutely not. In fact, when people come to the table and you've worked with that kind of preparation, normally they sit back and they enjoy themselves. And my table, usually they leave overfull, which is great. I love that. I love that. They leave satisfied with a great experience. So the word that David actually used was arak. You can spell it A-R-A-K or E-R-E-K, different. It's number 6186 in the Strong's in the Hebrew. And it means to set in a row, to arrange, to put in order in a wide variety of applications, to put, to set. It can even mean in battle, in array, compare. It can mean to direct or equal or esteem or estimate or expert or furnish or handle. It can also mean to ordain, to lay, to put, to reckon up, to order, to prepare. Okay, that seems to be a broad range of meanings, but let's look at it. Thou or you prepareth, you prepare. So let's take some of those meanings, because we definitely just looked at what the shepherd did, and he was putting things in order. He was arranging things in a specific way. He was directing things in the tableland so that they would be just so for the sheep. Because he esteemed the sheep. So his actions had much purpose and much meaning behind them. So if we look at it from that, to set in order, to furnish, to ordain, and let's think about the English word ordain. If we just think about that off the top of our head, it can also mean to establish an order, or by appointment or decree or law. So Yahweh doesn't just prepare as you and I would go and make something for lunch or something like that. No, he's not doing that. He's not just happenstance taking care of something for us, though he will. He's ordaining something special. He has something special in the works to prepare the table before us. He's setting things in order. He's arranging things. He's laying them out just so, specifically for us. He's setting them in order. So what does that mean? Because it shows us that Yahweh, his preparation is intentional. His preparation for his sheep is purposeful. It has been planned. It is orderly. It's not happenstance. It's not chaotic. Everything is under his control, under the control of Yah. He's actively setting things up for you and I. Now, this word is arak, has also been used over and over in the precise arrangement or careful preparation of the sacrifices on the altar. And if we think about those are slow and deliberate and attentive. All the details are taken care of. Not one is missed. Not one is missed by the priest as the priest prepares the sacrifice. Not one. In fact, not one is missed even as the sacrifice is looked over to see if it is a good sacrifice. It is a good option for a sacrifice, because there is no spot and there is no blemish. So we have this slow and deliberate action, organization of the details for the sacrifices. And then the meal. The meal is not hurried. It is not hurried. This is important for us to understand, because Yah's in charge. If you are fearful, not trusting him, and you know the enemies are on another ridge, you're on that mesa, you're on that tableland, you're at the table, and the enemy's watching, you might like to scarf it all down because the enemy's watching. I got to get out of here and hide. No, if we trust the shepherd, We'll eat at the table he's prepared for us in shalom. We won't hurry it because we trust he's got everything ready. He's not going to let the enemy attack us. The enemy might watch us. He might be all around us, but we're in that safe place on the path of righteousness where he's prepared the table for you and I in the presence of our enemies. So we don't need to hurry. We don't need to worry because he has arranged and provided that meal for us. That's pretty encouraging. It's pretty exciting. He doesn't do fast food for us. No, it's not going to be a trip to Burger King or some other place. I don't know, some fast food joint. He's not even hurrying when we think of our circumstances warrant haste. How many times do we think, okay, I'm in dire straits now. Yah needs to move immediately. He needs to move quickly. He needs to move on my time. And you don't see him move on your time. He moves, but it's not the timing that you thought he would move at. Why? Because he's not hurried. And if we trust him, we don't get in a hurry. We trust that he has got us, that he has our best interest at heart, that he has prepared the way. And so we rest because our life is in his hands and he would never let something harm us. Yeah. So we don't need to hurry through those circumstances. We don't have to say, oh no, he didn't take care of it. So I've got to go take care of this situation that's bringing forth pressure in my life myself. We do that, guys. We don't see him moving in our time. And so we leave the dinner table and we go rush through, and we actually fall right into the enemy's hands because we create chaos ourselves because we don't trust him. But Yahweh says, I have time. I'm going to take care of you. Don't rush. Enjoy the journey. Trust in me. Don't hurry around. Don't rush around because the enemy's watching. I've got the enemy. I've already defeated him. I've got him. Remember, 1,000 may fall at our side and 10,000 at our right hand, but it will not come near us. Y'all laughs at all our silliness, I'm sure, just as a parent would over their child. He slowly gets the meal ready, prepares the table, prepares for us the feast and the ground so that we can safely and enjoy the meal without rushing, without pressure, without any worry whatsoever, because he's in charge. Do we actually say, oh, Father, I'm going to rest in you. You're in charge. You've got me. So he says, hey, before the big meal, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? I've prepared these hors d'oeuvres for you. Take some of that. I've prepared this for you. I've prepared that. Of course, we're not talking specifically about food, but yet the table, the beautiful preparation, is going to also bring us a blessed and amazing meal as well. Are we always going to look at this psalm from this perspective? No, we're going to look at it other ways too. But I want us to remember, just looking at the tableland and what the shepherd does very much brings us to the place where we can see what our shepherd does for us. Are we letting Yahweh prepare the table, or do we live a microwave type of life? Everything boom, 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 boom. Or do we sit back and say, Father, you're in control? Because what Yah has in mind is not going to happen in 30 seconds for us. He does things on purpose, in his time, in his way. Sometimes it takes months. It might even take years. It could even take decades. But we still must resist the enemy's fast solutions, his fast food solutions, his microwave solutions. Because we don't enjoy a meal if we eat it and run, or while we're on the run. It doesn't happen. And why do we need to run if we trust in him? Because Hasatan is excited if we start running, if we start twisting and twirling and trying to take over the throne of our own lives, push Yah out of the chair so that we can control it. The enemy wants us to rush through things. He wants us to make quick decisions. He wants us to move on the fly. He wants us to move without thinking, without praying. Of course, that's the most important thing, without seeking Yah. He wants us looking at our shoulders, walking in fear. Now, remember, we talked about fear as we've been studying this psalm. When we are afraid, there are literal physical that affect us, that they affect us from even making good decisions. That's fear. But then I think back, how much of the world is walking around in fear, is running around in fear? Most of it right now. Most of it. All we have to do is just walk into a public place and you'll see people that are walking in fear in this day, in this hour. And so what do? They have a microwave type of life. And as they're always looking over their shoulders, taking care of things really fast in their own effort. If we want to sit at Yah's table, the tableland that the shepherd prepares for the sheep, we have to slow down. And when we slow down, it is part of the proof and the evidence that we trust him and that we're going to stay on the path of righteousness and we're not going to stray from that. When we let Yah put the things in order in our life, as we submit to him, as we remember that his will is now our will and he's in charge of our life. And what happens to us as he's arranging, as we're trusting him to take care of us, as we're trusting him in all things, well, we enjoy him. We get to enjoy the journey. We get to seek after him. We get to worship him. We get to spend time with our shepherd. We get to spend time with Yeshua. Because if we're trusting in him and we're not worrying and we're not fretting and we're not fearing, then there's time, right? There is time, because we're not putting in all our own effort to really create more chaos in our own life, which this psalm has been very much about the chaos that surrounds the journey, that surrounds the path. But that's not what he wants for us. He wants us to go to the tablelands, to those high ranges where it's the best of the best. He wants us to go there, even if the enemy's looking on, even if we could see the enemy on the ridge. If we know that the enemy's around, we still confidently say, my Yah has this. He's much bigger than you. So, the Yahweh is my shepherd. I shall not want. I shall not want. He prepares a table before me in the presence of my enemies. So maybe this has affected you tonight. I hope it gives you some encouragement, because we're going to continue this and we're going to look at it from a different perspective. And then we're also going to look at it as we break down the words in Hebrew and see if they give us this same idea that the literal shepherd says we look at from this. But David was a shepherd. David wrote the psalm under the inspiration of the Ruach HaKodesh, under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit. So, of course, it's coming directly from Yah's mouth. And Yah knew that David would understand the language as he wrote it as a shepherd. So, guys, let's put ourselves in this place. Let's ask ourselves the question, because I think we can all do better. We all can stray. We can all be rushed and hurried in life, wondering why Yah hasn't moved, why he hasn't taken care of that enemy, why he hasn't taken care of that ground, that situation, answered that prayer. We do it. We do it, and then we rush in. Let us not be one of those people that does that. Let us not be one of those that stops trusting, stops walking in faith. Let us be the bride, the spotless bride. Let us be the people that have prepared ourselves and that walk in complete trust of our shepherd, because he's got us. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. as we've looked over this psalm. Next week, I will be preparing for Shavuot, so it will not be a live program next week, but we will continue with this discussion in 2 weeks live. So until then, we are so happy that you've joined us, and we pray that you have a blessed time. Shalom.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.